Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 150 episodes of mead-making education, information, and entertainment. More than 100 guests have stopped by the Mead House, professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey, and brewers just like you and me have all visited to share their knowledge. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a keyholder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. You can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player, and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House, mead-making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 181. I was just putting a new roof on the place when Jeff and Ryan showed up. I'm JD Webb, and I'll probably have to lay some tile in the bathroom after they leave. Hey, the Mead House podcast, we're everywhere on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and now on Amazon Music. You can even ask your sweetheart Alexa to play the Mead House podcast. Hey, check the front page of the website, themeadhouse.com, for more locations on where to find episodes of the Mead House podcast. Hey, in this episode, okay, so here's another one. All right, in this hobby of ours, brewing and mead making, you meet all sorts of people. We've talked to scientists, engineers, software developers, all who've turned into brewers. The background here begins as a pharmacist many years ago, of all things. Hey, beyond that, Ryan managed to find what looks like a very unique way to brew a braggot with all the ingredients you need in a can short of the honey. In this episode, we'll talk to Bart Balis from Brewferm, all the way from Belgium. In segment 2, hey, to secondary or not to secondary, that is the question posed to us for our segment 2 discussion. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. And in segment 3, social interaction, social club. This is where we try to answer questions from mead makers with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house. We'll talk about oaking again, tropical ingredients, and an expanding secondary in this episode. All that and more here at the Mead House. But first, hey, thanks to all of the Mead House key holders like Rick Joria, who helped keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House key holder and help support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts to send out to you, plus a listing of key holder only content. So get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or you can just click on the link in the show notes. What are we drinking this morning, guys? Yes, I said this morning. It's 10 o'clock at my house. It's probably after lunchtime at Ryan's, and hell only knows what the hell time it is in Kansas City. Hey, I'm drinking, since it's morning, okay, I've got a coffee drink. All right, this is one of my specialties. This is 2 ounces of bourbon cream, 2 ounces of Jameson Stout Edition Irish whiskey, 1 ounce of Kahlua, 2 ounces of fresh brewed coffee. Shake it vigorously in a shaker, pour over ice, and drink. Awesome stuff. And then in my other hand, guys, really simple this time. It's just water. So that's what I'm doing. Jeff, in Kansas City, what's in your cup? What is it, afternoon there now?
Yeah, it's a little afternoon. So I'm taking a long lunch from work, and I'm working from home, so nobody's going to complain about the fact that I've got 2 alcoholic beverages in my hand, right? In my first glass, I have the remains of a bottle Sap House's Hey Jealousy. This is that the gin barrel aged wildflower mead, and man. Like the floral and herbal notes from the gin, the floral and herbal notes from the honey, just the scent alone is really, really appealing on this one. Yeah, I've probably talked about this one before a time or two. I think this is the second bottle of theirs of this that I've had. I just really enjoy this. I'm trying to keep it to a small glass just so I can, finish my workday here. But that's really nice. Really nice meat. I love the presentation on, just the oak spirit, a little bit of that barrel character and the honey character, all really nicely blending together. My other hand has a glass of Berry Brunch Stout from Schlafly out in St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
And let's see. It's definitely a stout. I honestly expected a little bit more berry character out of this because I get the stout bitterness up front and that kind of like the chocolatey character. And I find myself looking for the berries and finding them kind of. But I think if I would probably go a little heavier on the berry, which would be a great thing to do in secondary, like we'll be talking about in segment 2.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ryan, did you fix pancakes for the kids this morning or?
Well, my kids, I made breakfast sandwiches.
There you go.
So I take an English muffin and some good Irish butter and sausage patty and some good cheese and a fried egg.
There you go. Bart probably doesn't know, our guest who's standing by here. He probably doesn't know that we actually record this thing at nighttime normally. But since he's like 4 million miles away, we all got up early this morning to put this episode together. So that's why we're talking coffee and breakfast food. Ryan, what's in your cup this morning?
So it's afternoon now. JD, you said that it was 5 o'clock all the time for you. I don't know why you're telling me it's 10 a.m. I believe you've said once you retire, it's 5 o'clock, all the time.
Yeah, it's Saturday. It's always Saturday and it's always 5 o'clock. But yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
So I am, I've got 2 drinks in front of me. One's in a glass, one's still in the can. We'll see if I get to it. I've got to get a little more work done. But because it is earlier in the day than usual, and, coffee does sound pretty good, I am drinking an espresso milk stout.
Ooh, wow.
This is from a local brewery. Very good. It's got it's got a lot of that roast and almost chocolate on the nose, and I'm really enjoying this. So this is good. And then I might have something later if I need to, but we'll see. I tried to stay away from the stuff that was real heavy here.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, as JD has mentioned a couple of times, our guest today, and I'll use that word today again, not tonight, joins us from across the Atlantic. Bart Balis is in Belgium, where he is the brewmaster for Brewferm, and I'll get into how I found him later, and the owner of Brouwland. As JD was saying, started out kind of with a pharmacy background and got into brewing. I tell you, I remember that there was you talk to people, older than JD, and they'll tell you, if you've got a cold, you drink gin. If you've got a sore throat, drink brandy. If you've got muscle aches, drink rum. So I definitely see how the pharmacy side of things, works into this brewing, works into the brewing evolution. Welcome to the show, Bart. And what's in your glass today or tonight?
Hello, good evening or good morning over there across the Atlantic. I'm actually enjoying, it's 7 p.m. In the evening, and I'm actually enjoying a glass of Orval.
Oh, very nice. Excellent. One of the great beers.
Yes, indeed, which is very easy for me to get.
Before we get too jealous of how easy it is for you to find all those wonderful beers and how fresh they must be when you get them, I came across a Brewferm, the website, brewferm.com. And this is a company some of you may be familiar with, but they sell kits. They've got, kind of all you need to brew beer. So the equipment as well, but then they've also got their mixes. And that's what drew my eye to them, because I hadn't really seen anything quite like this. That's got the wort, the hops, and even the yeast, included right in it, kind of for you to just to make a nice, quick and easy batch, and thought how we can craft that into a braggot for this show. I should say I have seen this concept before, but not with the Belgian styles that are used here. And all of the styles here are Belgian or have a Belgian bend to them. So that's how I first found out about you guys. Bart, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background and what you're working on?
Okay, great. Brewferm indeed are a range of Belgian beer kits. And although some of your audiences might have seen some beer kits in the market, Belgian beer kits are not available, at least apart from Brewferm then. We are the only Belgian company who is marketing beer kits for making beer at home from Belgian ingredients. And we actually started this product range already quite a long time ago, in the early 80s, I should say. Brouwland, the company that I own, was initiated in 1972 by my father, who was indeed a pharmacist. And pharmacy and chemistry and brewing, well, it's not that far apart from each other. And he got interested in home brewing, and he started selling this equipment for making wine and beer at home. And at that time, also, beer kits were already available, so cans to make beer at home. But my father quickly found out, and so did we, that the quality of those kits was not that good. And then we started combining and putting together our own malt mixes to make beer at home. And the Brewferm brand, as a beer kit brand, started in 1983.
Wow, it's been around quite a while. Now, Bart, you don't mind when people take liberties and do a little tinkering or changing of your recipes on the cans, do you?
No, not at all. I think that's one of the very great misunderstandings. When people see a kit, they think that they can only brew this beer and exactly this beer, and that they cannot alter the recipe. And actually, they can do that if they want to, but they don't need to. I know that in the United States, a lot of people think that when they brew beer from a can, that they have to replace almost everything. You will read on fora that they have to replace the sugar by malt extract, that they have to change the yeast, and that they have to do all kinds of stuff. And actually, that is not the case with Brewferm kits, because we use only the best of ingredients, and we have carefully measured up all the ingredients and the final volume of beer that you can brew with them. And if you would brew it the first time, we strongly suggest that you do not alter the recipe, because then you see how we intended the beer to be. And then afterwards, if you brew it again and you say, well, okay, I like it a bit more sweet, or whatever aroma you would like to add, then you can still change, of course, that recipe.
Sure. Well, I please don't be too hard on me, but I didn't brew the beer as per the directions the first time. I am gonna took a few liberties. I had a can of the double, the Belgian double Dame here, and decided to do some tinkering. So I took the canister and added to that. It was going to change it up. I was going to do a 5-gallon batch, and so changed it up and added 3 pounds of 3 pounds of honey and the canister, and that was it. And then made it to a 5-gallon volume, which brought the original gravity a little lower than you have the recommended. The original gravity came down to about 1060, which was going to give me which is right where I wanted it to be. And then I used the yeast that came with it, the monastic dry yeast, and I'm really it smelled great. The must tasted great. I'm sorry, the worts tasted great, and I'm very excited. So I did quite a bit of tinkering, but I'm excited because I really like making the Belgian styles. That's one of my favorite styles to drink, one of my favorite styles to make, and then I like doing that tinkering. But no, it's very, very exciting. One of my questions really with it, because I didn't do any additional hopping, was the hop extracts that you use. Sometimes from a brewer, we think that you need your bittering hops and you need the aroma hops, and if you don't put the aroma hops in, at say towards the end of the boil, you're not going to get all that great flavor and aroma, and just how that plays in when you're using one of your mixes that has that hop extract already as part of the kit.
Well, actually, the kits are not made with hop extract alone, but they're actually brewed in a real brew house, and they add hop pellets, just like craft brewers are doing in several instances during the boil process. And so the extract actually contains more aromatic hops or aromatic components than kits that use only hop extract.
I gotta cut in here for a minute, Ryan, because I am completely confused. I'm looking at the double Dame that you brewed. I dig traditionally dark chocolatey, full bodied with rich caramel aftertaste. I am eager to try that, but I'm confused. Bart, it says all you need to do is add sugar. Now, does this already include the malt? Is the malt in there? Can you explain why it's just sugar? And it talks about just adding regular grain sugar, right?
Yeah, indeed. We are talking about regular grain sugar or corn sugar, probably. And the reason why we add sugar is that, as you know, a lot of the Belgian beers have a higher original gravity,
yes,
and a higher alcohol degree. And what not everybody knows is that this is attained by indeed adding sugar instead of adding malt.
Uh-huh.
When you try to brew a beer with only malt for such a high gravity, you get a pretty heavy body of your beer. And for example, Duvel is a very good example for that. If you have tasted the Duvel beer, it's actually in body quite okay and still has a high alcohol degree. And that is attained by adding sugar that is fermenting out, that is better fermenting out and not leaving a lot of body components in the beer.
Sure, it's just going to raise the ABV up pretty much without affecting the flavors.
That's correct.
So
JD, sometimes we use the Belgian candy sugars or the candy syrups. To do some of that stuff. But that's interesting that here you don't need to worry about any of that. You can just add your either corn sugar or your white table sugar.
I'm I am very eager to try this. Bart, one of the styles of mead. We're basically a mead brewing podcast, but we do dig into beers every once in a while. One of the styles of meads that we like to talk about on the show is one that's not it's not often made, and it's just making more of an appearance in some of the competitions that we talk about here on the show, and it's called a braggot. And Jeff, who is our resident BJCP judge and expert on all these rules, Jeff, again, that's what is it now? I want to get it straight.
The harmonious marriage between beer and mead.
And mead or malt or yeah. So I'm looking at this, Bart, as being a really nice beginning to producing a braggot here. I mean, can I replace I know Ryan is working on this double, however you say it. How do you say it? Double
dum. Yes, double dummer.
Double dummer. I know Ryan's working on this. Adding honey, which is, I guess, simplest terms, another form of sugar. That should be okay too, right?
That for sure is okay. All depends, of course, on the aroma profile of the honey. I wouldn't suggest to add a lot of lavender honey to name something. So when it's a very specific honey, very strong taste, then of course you will alter the beer tremendously. But all of our kits, or a lot of our kits, are pretty strong-bodied beers, and they easily accept a good bunch of honey to complement it.
I like the Belgian blonde the best. I've had many of those here as a beer. And I think the Belgian blonde is a great base, Ryan, that you can do pretty much anything with. I've done it here at home, using the base of a Belgian blonde to, and then of course, refine the recipe a little bit to turn it into a braggot. But man, I'm looking at the website here, and for our listeners, it's brewferm.com. We'll put the links in the show notes. But this is, I'm really, I am really eager. Okay. Sinister stout. I mean, holy cow. I can see a lot of different kinds of braggots coming out of this.
Well, and I find that it's interesting that it's a concentrated wort too. I mean, looking at the process and the recipes and to hear Bart tell it, this sounds a lot more like my experience with doing wine kits, where basically, you follow your sanitation steps, you put everything in the fermenter with some water, you put in the yeast, and it's go. You don't spend 5 or 6 hours doing your mash or your boil or adding hops and things like that. There's a level of convenience that's really attractive for these. And, again, for starting out making braggots, oh yeah, this is great.
Bart, why does some of the best tasting beers come out of Belgium?
That's a good question.
Seriously. I mean, some of the best tasting beers I've ever had are Belgian beers.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm not sure I have the only answer to it, but as you know, beer brewing is a very ancient tradition in Belgium. I don't have to tell you that Stella was one of the first breweries, and is still, of course, a very big landmark in the brewing industry.
Yes.
And what probably made Belgian beers so outstanding is the fact that they remained, loyal to mostly very simple recipes.
Yes.
Without adding too much adjuncts or trying to change the aroma, but just sticking to quality ingredients and really, make it more perfect, the recipe that they were using. And of course, not to forget their own yeasts. All of the breweries in Belgium, especially the larger breweries, they have their own yeast that they cultivate in their own yeast fermenters. And of course, that is a very big secret to how the aroma profiles of the Belgian beers are coming together.
One of my favorite styles of beer, maybe my favorite style of beer, are Trappist, beers, especially like talked about the doubles or the entire range. And the Stan Hieronymus, who is a famous beer writer, wrote a book a while back called Brew Like a Monk. And he had visited a lot of these breweries and talked with the brewers there and things like that. And he talked about it at the American Homebrewer Association convention or HomebrewCon. And basically he broke it down and he said, when you talk to these guys, they make the best beers in the world. And their stores, or their ingredient stores are incredibly simple. Maybe 2 different kinds of malt, maybe 2 different kinds of sugar, maybe 2 different kinds of hops, and then their yeast, and that's about it. And he goes, so if you're a home brewer and you're getting going and you've got 15 kinds of grain and 8 different kinds of hops and all these kind of things, you're overcomplicating it. It might work against you.
One question.
Yeah, that's correct.
One question I do have, Bart. I'm looking through I'm on the brewferm.com and I'm looking at these cans of all these different I don't know, what do you call them? Cans of what? Beer mixes, I guess.
Beer mixes.
Yeah. Mixes, yeah. And I see they're all 3 gallon, 2.5 gallons, a 4 gallon. Typically, we usually talk about 5 gallon batches. Now, if I'm looking at one that's say 2.5 gallons, can I just simply take 2 cans of that, add my honey, and come up with 5 gallons, or are these scalable?
Yes, they are, of course, scalable. You can perfectly take 2, for example, Bighorn Blondes, which is for 2.5 gallons. When you take 2 of those cans, you have 5 gallons. Then you replace the sugar by honey, add your 2 sachets of yeast, and you're good to go.
Wow. Guys, this is like a whole new, I think we're going to get a lot of feedback from a lot of our listeners when they see this in the show notes, when they click on this link and find this. Now, these are all available in the United States, right?
That's correct. All this range is available in the United States, both on Amazon and also on our own web shop, brewferm.com.
Oh, wow.
The reason that I wanted to talk to Bart, about this kind of now here as we're into December in the thick of the holiday season is where people are busy. Maybe you're not as busy this year as you've been in the past, but you're busy. I mean, I've got 4 young children, and I don't have a ton of time to do all grain brewing right now, anyway, or even if it wasn't the holidays. But especially around the holidays, it seems kind of like, the consumption might peak, might go up a little bit. So you need to brew to keep up with it. And this just seemed, just from having that extra step of saying, oh, I need to make sure I've got the right kind of hops and enough of them and the right kind of, the specialty grains, and maybe I'm going to do an extract batch, but steep in some grains or some things like that, or the right, do I have the yeast? This is, when I got this, it was just kind of all in one, right? Like, here's your canister. It's got the hops in it. It's got the malt in it. It's got all the, including all the different grains you need. It's got the yeast packet with it. all you need to do is go. So that was why I was really excited to get to try around the holidays, because I am so strapped for time, but that doesn't mean that I need the beer any less. So the convenience factor for me was just something that I thought, so that I can get a really the kind of beer I want. Like talked about the stout, JD, that Sinister Stout, or the Bighorn Blonde, or the Double, or any of those others, just to make it as easy as possible to brew.
My wife.
No, exactly.
Go ahead, Bart.
Exactly. That's also what we are experiencing from our customers. We get a lot of feedback from our customers who are saying exactly the same thing. So you either have people who are starting with the hobby of homebrewing and want to try a kit, and then they are very pleasantly surprised by the high quality of the beer that comes out. But we have a very large chunk of customers who are actually grain brewers, and at some time in the year during busy periods, they don't have the time to indeed do an all grain brew during half a day, and they just take one of our cans and make an in-between brew, which is as good in taste as a grain brew. And also we noticed that, for example, homebrewers that are, let's say, growing a bit older and don't have the energy to grain brew for a whole day, also they benefit from using our kits regularly.
You're talking to one right now. I'm almost 70 years old. So that's good. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you hit it right on. You hit that right on the top of it. That's good stuff right there. Yeah, some of us older folks, we just don't give a damn about anything else but time.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, it's time is of the essence. Do as much as you can do with what little time you got left. I'm telling you, I am really eager to try this Sinister Stouts. Is one of my wife's favorite beers. I mean, she's a big time Guinness lover, and anything with a stout in it, she really likes. In fact, I make a really nice braised short ribs using a stout as part of my braising liquid, and she just loves it. So I am really eager to try this stout. Ryan, I'm telling you, dude, this is like, for our listeners out there who, we spend a lot of time talking about braggots here, and I think our listeners have really, beginning to come around. They're getting more involved with braggots. We hear about it all the time. We've got people who contact us on Facebook talking to us about the braggots that they're making. This is a whole other road that they can go down and save a lot of time. But I'm digging all these flavors. I mean, Divine Deliverance, Beastly Beige. I mean, I want to try this Bighorn Blonde too. My God, what a I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Well, before we run out of time here, I will say that for our listeners, and I'll put this in the show notes as well, that Bart has extended a promo to all of our listeners by going to brewferm.com or by buying it on Amazon. With the code word Meadhouse, that's one word, Meadhouse, you get 20% off your order. So 20% off your order. And I haven't checked Amazon, but I know right now on brewferm.com, there is free shipping. So it looks like you can get, if you order right now with that code word Meadhouse, 20% off and free shipping. So take advantage of that, whether for yourself or a great way to gift. If you want to get somebody into homebrewing, they have the kits that come with all the hardware, everything you need to brew your batch, fermenter and everything else. or if you've already got all that and you just want to get those mixes, give those a try. I plan on making at least 2 here to get me through the new year.
There you go. Bart, I don't know what else to say, guy. I mean, you have created something here that is going to be have a huge impact on a lot of our listeners who like to brew these braggots. And it's basically, like Jeff said, it's a harmonious blend between beer and mead, or honey and malt, basically. And it can come in any combination as long as you get some characteristic of the honey in there. But these present a great base. And I'm just eager to try just brew it as is. Just add the sugar and do it as is.
Yes, indeed. And well, you'd better start brewing these earlier than later, because all of these beers, or most of these beers, are stronger and fuller bodied beers, so they need a somewhat longer maturation time. For example, your double dam, if you want to really have it tasted the way we intended it to be, you will have a maturation time of 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, that's no problem.
Well, maybe I won't have that. Maybe I'll have that at Valentine's Day then.
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
Hey, gosh, Bart, thanks for joining us here. We do need to have you come back on our show.
No problem.
This has been a lot of fun. I don't think have we ever talked to anybody from another country, guys? I don't think so. I think Bart's the first. Well, I mean Canada.
It's a good question. I think we've talked to folks from other that have. I don't know if they were in the States or out of the States or where. I mean, we've had international folks on before, but where they were, I'm not sure.
Yep.
Bart, thank you very much. We are going to try to play with some of these kits, and we'll have you on again after we've made them, and talk to you then.
Of course, sure, no problem. Most welcome.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Bart.
all there.
All right. Wow. Dude, where did you find this, Ryan? How did you find this?
I was online, and you know how your computer listens to you, or your phone listens to you all the time. And
yeah, I'm a little.
If you say the word brewing, all of a sudden you start getting ads that talk about how to brew.
Yeah.
And I got served this ad, and it said, like a Belgian brewing kit, like straight from Belgium or something like that. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Let me take a look at that. And I started looking at these, and it was I was really skeptical at first. I'll give you guys, I was really skeptical because of the reputation that old canisters of malt extract or wort extract had.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it's one thing, and I buy that sometimes that liquid malt extract. I've had, I usually default to dry, but I have had liquid because we've talked about this in the past. How there are some malts you just can't get dry. I have yet to find like a Maris Otter or a Vienna or a Munich or I might be getting those confused, but there's a handful of them that you just can't find dry. So if you want the extract, you got to get liquid.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. I've heard other guys, older brewers in the club, talk about, years and years ago, there were these canisters that were, dump and brew, basically.
Yeah.
It's got the extract in it, it's got the hops, it's got the hops, the malt, the yeast, and you just dump it and swirl in some water and walk away.
Yeah.
And they said those were pretty rough. Those didn't have a ton of good quality in them. And so a little skeptical, but hey, the cell phones today are a lot better than the cell phones were 35 years ago. So I said, let's see how these have progressed. And I was just really, really excited at that. First of all, the flavors, I love my Belgian beers, and he's got, 15 different flavors of all the Belgians, the double, the triple, the Belgian, brown, the Belgian IPA, the Belgian stout, that kind of thing. So was really excited and was really impressed with the quality. Thought the quality was really there. And then, of course, the light bulb goes off and you see these canisters say 3 pounds, 3 ounces.
Yeah.
And I go, well, son of a gun. There's a recipe I know out there that calls for 3 pounds of malt extract and 3 pounds of honey. And this just seemed like a really easy way to say, hey, you know what? I make double braggots all the time. Yeah. I make double braggots all the time. I make Saison braggots all the time. And I said, well, geez, this is almost one step easier on a holiday, a quick brew, something that I've got to get done over, a couple hours on a Saturday or whatever.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, here it is. Let me give it a try. Again, I skeptical, wasn't expecting, much. I mean, surely if you spend 3 times as much time and do, 5 times as many steps, it's got to be better, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, not always. Not always. I've just because you do more steps doesn't always mean it's better. But so like I said, I wanted to share this because I thought it was something that was pretty cool, pretty easy to do. Got in touch with them. They threw us a discount code for all the listeners.
Yeah, thank you, Bart.
And
thank you very much.
Like I said, right now they've got the free shipping going on. So a good thing to check out there.
Yeah, Sacred Saison, Triple Terror, Wicked Wheat, Piles Pilsner. I mean, the flavors just go on and on and on here. We'll put the links up in the show notes, guys. Make sure you go to meathouse.com. That's where all our show notes. I know sometimes they appear in some of the podcast players that you might have on your, I don't know, what do you call them now? Smart devices, I guess, and whatnot. But to make sure if not, make sure that you get to the meathouse.com for that link, the promo code, the link to Bart's Place at Brewferm. Man, I'm seeing just an unbelievable opportunity here. If you really want to get into braggots, and even if you've never done a braggot before, this almost seems like the simplest way, Jeff. Replace the sugar with the honey. Okay, and like you said, don't use lavender. I've had lavender honey, and it stinks up the whole house. But anyway, it just seems like a new, interesting way. If you've never made a braggot before, Jeff, that you can get right involved just using a can of
Well, and this is equipment light too. I mean, I've talked to a number of people that, they make mead or they make wine, but they're a little bit uncertain about getting into making beer because you need a big ass kettle to boil in,
right.
Or you need
right.
All kinds of different equipment that you don't have as a winemaker. And this is pretty much, you can cheat a little bit in some regards with just doing a wort concentrate and boiling that. But this is so simple. It requires no extra equipment other than maybe like a pot to sanitize the can in some warm water. And, everybody should have that in their house. So, yeah, this is a great option.
Yeah, something I probably should have asked them, Ryan. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is no boil, right? You didn't boil this double dame thing that he's talking about, right?
Right.
You just dumped it in your fermenter.
They call them their no boil mixes.
Wow.
Right.
And I know from the I know if you start on the homebrew side, that's really scary because you think you brew it, you think you boil everything. I gotta boil I gotta boil the wort. I gotta boil the hops. I gotta boil everything to sanitize it and drive off the DMS and keep the bugs out and everything else. But it shouldn't be foreign if you're a mead maker or a wine maker where you don't boil anything. I mean, well, if you're a mead maker, hopefully you're not boiling anything, but your honey, I should say.
Yeah.
But no, on the mead, most of the mead and wine side, you're not boiling anything. You're cleaning everything really good and sanitizing it, and then just going from there. So, I know how for a lot of beer folks that this does seem weird. It's like, wait, I just open this can and dump it in, but it's like, but wait a second, even when I've gotten extract kits before, they say boil. So why don't I boil this? Well, apparently, it's you don't have to. It's pack sanitary. Yeah. It's pack sanitary. So all you got to do is, like Jeff said, take your spray bottle of Star San and squirt the bottle really good, or dunk it or something, and then open it up and dump it in, and off you go.
I don't want to spend a lot more time on this, but this is, like I said, for somebody who has never tried a braggot before, this is probably one of the most simplest ways to get in it. The other thing that I like about it is these are small batches. Okay, I mean, if you don't want to get into a big batch of stuff, stay with the 3-gallon thing. Just replace the honey with the sugar with the honey. Make sure you're getting some of that honey character, to come through a little bit. You might even want to throw a little bit of honey in there to get it started, and then wait for that high krausen, dump the rest of your honey in, and let it go. I found that's, the best way if you really want to try to capture some of that honey character is don't dump it in all at one time. Get enough in there to get it started. But then wait for high krausen and start adding your honey even a little bit at a time. At high krausen and just past high krausen. I think you'll be able to retain some of that honey character a little bit better that way. But anyway, I don't want to spend all day on this. I mean, we could, but I'd have to call Bart back and say, hey, you got a couple more hours? Good stuff. Good find, Ryan. Really good find. So to secondary or not to secondary, that's the question. I've seen this often too. People talk about secondary like it's a must-do thing. And let's talk about that for a little bit. Is it really necessary to keep secondary, one after the other? Who wants to start this off?
Sure. Well, I'll start it off. It's my suggestion. I saw this post from a guy named True Bro, on Reddit. And, he threw out some questions. Is it necessary? I followed basic recipes from this sub, and there wasn't any mention of secondary in those recipes. I got 4 carboys brewing right now. Was hoping to bottle and give away for Christmas. What does secondary do? How is it done? Is it necessary? Thanks for the advice. And, I see this question a lot because I feel like secondary can be a little bit amorphous. Not everybody does it every time. It accomplishes different things. I thought this would be a good time to talk about some of the stuff you can use secondary for. Is it always necessary? I don't think so. For my personal hard and fast rule, not hard and fast, anything under 7%, I generally don't bother with secondary unless there's spices or fruit that I want to add in secondary to bring those flavors out. Mm-hmm. Stuff above 10%, I almost always do a secondary just to kind of give the yeast time to eat up the last little bit of sugar, cleans itself up, and clear a little bit. And in between there, in that 7 to 10% range, is kind of, I don't know. Do I need to? Maybe. So, Ryan, do you want to jump in and share some of your opinions there?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Jeff that if I'm doing something relatively low alcohol, and I say relatively because to some people, 7% low alcohol, and to some people 7% high alcohol. But if I'm doing something relatively low alcohol, like Jeff said, let's say around 7-8%, somewhere in there, I don't, because typically what that means is that lease bed or trube bed is not massive, right? It's not huge, and your stuff isn't sitting on a ton of it for a very long time. The other along with that, the other thing is with alcohol percent also comes what the flavors are. Something a lot lighter flavored, if you're trying to make a really light meat, really light traditional, or a really light the Pilsner braggot or something like that, may also pick up more flavors the longer it sits on the lease or the trube, versus, your stout buckwheat braggot or your fruit bomb, something like that. So I think about, how delicate it is, and then where the alcohol is, and how long it needs to sit. If it's something I'm planning on keeping in there for a few months, more likely to go over to a secondary. But if it's something that I'm going to do in a matter of a few weeks, like I'm turning around a really quick braggot, I don't. And the other reason I don't is the steps involved don't equal better quality. More steps equal better quality in that, and actually give you the opportunity to make more mistakes. So what happens is now you've got to make sure that other vessel is sanitized. You got to make sure that your hose and your siphon are sanitized. You got to be careful not to oxidize, not to create anything like that. So you're exposing it. You might if you got, let's say, Brett, in the air, you could pick up some Brett or something that you didn't want in there. Mm-hmm. So you balance out those risks with the upside and the quality, and that's where like I said, anything light, low alcohol. Heavy or low alcohol, doesn't need it quite as much, versus something that might be lighter, more delicate, or need to sit for a longer period of time. Where you would want to do that. I've made wines before that I've had, or piements that have sat in a carboy for like a year. And of course with those, I'm not going to let it sit on the primary, lease for a year. I know there's people that do that. They claim the flavors are great. But that wasn't what I was going for. So that's kind of rounding out my thought on the subject.
Yeah. And I think you made some great points there. I mean, like, one of the things that I neglected to say was, sure, you could secondary a lower ABV, lighter kind of mead. But like you said, I'm just not sure there's a good return on that as far as the investment or the risk. So great point.
Well, and if you're an apartment dweller like I am, there's the space thing that you have to be concerned with too. I mean, how many carboys can you stack up in your closet along with your wife's stuff? So spaces of the, well, of course, then if you go like, I have trimmed down my space a little bit. When I secondary, I do it in kegs. I've pretty much gotten rid of all. I've got like one 5-gallon glass carboy that has one of the port meads in it. But I mean, what do you do in that case? So I mean, I've trimmed down a little bit. The kegs are a little bit smaller than the glass carboys, so there's a space saving thing there. As far as secondary, I mean, and I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to order the, I don't remember what it's called. It's from Spike Brewing. It's a brew. I can't remember without going to the website, I can't remember the name of the damn thing. But it's a fermenter. And it's a conical, fermenter, and it's got a nice trub dump at the bottom. And you can secondary in these things. You can even carbonate in these things if you wanted. So I'm going to be doing that. I want to trim down my my little brew station here a little bit. I still have my 2 stainless steel buckets that I'm actually going to use for secondary if that need arises. But by trimming down, I can go to a fermenter that I can do everything in all at one time. Okay.
Sure.
Which is a great advantage. So that's my 2 cents. Well, here's another thing. Talk another thing about, there are reasons why you should secondary, Jeff.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So there are great reasons it's secondary, like JD just said. I alluded at the very beginning here when we were talking about what we're drinking. You can throw spices or fruit or other things in there to get a better representation. And honestly, I generally don't do spice additions or herbal additions or things like that in primary, just because I don't want those flavors to fade as it ferments. So the addition of extra flavors. I know some people also will throw in a little extra honey before they before they stop the ferment altogether. But they find they get a little bit more true honey flavor if they add it later, as opposed to in the primary or like after high Krausen, like we've talked about it time and time again. That's a valid approach too. Just add a little extra so you got that honey character, hanging out. There are some kind of some weird factors from fermentation, little other tasty, weird estery things that an extended secondary can kind of eat up or clean up, if you will. That's kind of the idea behind lagering at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It gives an extended period for that yeast to eat the extra byproducts that make the beer less appetizing, and to a lesser extent that applies, really to meat or wine or anything else. You can accomplish that too. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to do it. Is it, advisable every time? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so, but
well, it used to be in the mead making world that you racked and you racked and you racked and you racked in order to clear your mead. 3-4
Sure.
rackings later, okay? But nowadays, you can accomplish that actually in your fermenter by using some of the chemicals that we've talked about here on the show.
Sure.
One of the latest ones we talked about, in fact, we had a guest listener on who talked about using bentonite. Great episode. Awesome episode. And then, of course, there's the 2-stage stuff that, Jeff, you know more about that stuff.
The dual fine or KC super, whatever they used to call it. Yeah. Fining agents can really cut your time down, but the whole idea of clearing a mead is another great reason to do a secondary if you want a good presentation, because you don't want to let it sit on a huge yeast cake or the leaves or the trub or whatever, but you still want to get all the crud out of it. So do you have a hard and fast rule as to when it's a good time to flip to secondary? I don't generally, other than there's a lot of crud there. I should move that.
Nah. Well, I think it depends on what you're brewing. I've let things sit in the fermenter for a month or more until it's I can see the bottom of the fermenter. At that point, it's
right.
Clearing up. I can throw it into a keg, and by using the clear beer system that I have now, the trub could pile up a couple inches on the bottom. I don't care, because the clear beer system actually siphons off the top, not the bottom of my kegs. That's another advantage. In fact, I'll throw the link in. Let me make a note of that. I'll throw that link in show notes as well. If you're using kegs, that clear beer system is awesome. So that's to secondary or not to secondary. That's a huge question, isn't it?
Really depends on what you're brewing at the end of the day.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, moving on here, guys. Are we done with that? Have we run that one into the ground?
I think we've hit the
all the fine points,
the big points there. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Hey, bottom line is, hey, you don't have to secondary. Okay. You really don't. Based on what you're brewing, you really don't have to secondary. It's not. It's not a big deal. Just be very conscious of what you're doing, what your recipe consists of, and the desired outcome. Those things you really need to put at the top of the list, and then go from there.
Right. And
Go ahead.
there are some reasons to secondary, but I think kind of going back to what you said, have a plan, know what you're doing going into it, and then you're going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Social interaction, the social club. I guess we're calling it the social club now. This is where we try to answer questions from mead makers like you and I, with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house, and believe me, that runs the gamut. We came back. This is our first show back from a couple of weeks, so we do a 6 and 2. Where we broadcast or put the podcast together for 6 weeks, and then we're off for 2 weeks. Need a little bit of break in between. So this is our first show back. Welcome back to the Meat House, and we're going to catch up on some social club here a little bit from the last show. I don't think we talked about this, but this one's like a huge deal here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's about oaking, and I don't know where this post came from, but followed up, decided to go with oaking, following the recommendations of others. I don't know what that consists of, but added oak to a sizer and a melomel. One was a bit too sweet. Both needed some body and mouthfeel. He decided to blend a 2-to-1 American and Hungarian. That's actually a good choice. And he says Hungarian was plenty for the sizer, which is surprising since normally it seems to take much longer. If anything, he's hoping to calm down a bit between now and when he bottles. But the mouthfeel is exactly what he wanted for the sizer. Trying to read through this thing to kind of skipping down here. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to pick it up there somewhere.
Yeah. So he has a lot of tasting notes as far as doing, it looks like a sizer and then a melomel, and notes that the oaking isn't exactly what he was hoping for right off the bat with the melomel, but there's some additional stuff with acid additions and things like that. These are good tasting notes, but it doesn't really come to the question. And I think he picks it back up towards the end here. I'm curious to know if people are used to the wood cubes being this quick acting. Did 3 ounces total in each of wood cubes, and I did not expect to be pulling the bag out of secondary this quickly, since it usually takes a month or two, it seems. Is this normal for meads that just need small adjustments in balance? Should I have left the oak in longer? Had the flavors develop more? I was trying to go based off of taste, like it seems is normal, but this is rather quick. So I don't see where he mentioned the quantity that he's putting 3 ounces of oak into. I mean, my rule of thumb generally with oak is about a half an ounce a gallon. Mm-hmm. If I want something oakier, I'll go a little bit more, but about a half an ounce is good for me. If he's putting 3 ounces into a single gallon, that might have been really fast.
Yeah. And a lot.
Right. So yeah, oaking can be like that. I mean, it's, what we're trying to achieve with oaking is predominantly getting more tannin into the mix, and that can definitely help with body and mouthfeel. It can also round out flavors like he's talking about here, but it's not always going to achieve dramatic results. He talks about in the melomel part, it wasn't as big a difference as in the sizer, and I think that may be because he's using fruit that has contributed tannin already. He may already have some tannin in there, so adding a little bit more with a little extra oak for a little while might not accomplish as much as it does when you're adding oak to a sizer that just doesn't have a lot of tannin in it in the first place.
Yeah.
It comes down to the idea of the balance between, sweetness and acidity and tannin to really round out a mead and make it really good in a finished product.
I've got a traditional that I threw together here. It's been almost a year ago now, and it's in it's pretty mature at this point, and my wife really liked it. I guess you could call it a semi-sweet. It does have some residual sugar, not a whole lot, but I felt it needed something, just something else. And so we tossed some American medium toasted oak. I don't remember how many ounces. Actually, it was a. Oh gosh, Ryan! I keep asking that name. The name of that river something.
River Run.
The what?
River Run Cooperage. Was that it?
Not River Run. Something. I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But anyway, I get my oak from this one company. It's got this. They're like honeycomb chunks of wood, and they're made for like 5 gallons at a time. You can even buy one for a barrel. It comes.
Yes. Sorry, I think were you talking about Black Swan Cooperage?
No.
Or
actually, wait a minute. I'll tell you right now.
Is it River
barrel or a barrel mill?
Nope. Nope. I'll tell you right now. Well, as soon as I get the package open, I got one sitting on my desk. This is from Black Swan Cooperage.
That's the first one I said.
Was it? I didn't understand. Black Swan Cooperage. Hey, I have an excuse. I'm old, so I don't hear things correctly sometimes. I keep telling my wife that all the time, too. It works, believe me. Anyway, Black Swan Cooperage. Good. I love this stuff. I get all my oak from them. And I love these they make them for 750 ml bottles. Anyway, that's a whole other show. So we threw some American medium toasted oak in, and it really came out good. We really liked it, but I felt, not quite yet. So I added some, I don't know, probably about maybe an ounce and a half of Hungarian oak. You kind of got to be careful with Hungarian because you can go way overboard with it. And it's really coming together now a lot better. So I dig the whole oaking thing. I'm a big fan of it. But Jeff, I think it's something, or actually let's throw it over to Ryan. I think this is something that I think definitely resides in the tasting category. If you're not tasting this thing after, say, 4 weeks, if you're not tasting this thing every several days, it can go south on you because too much oak and you start getting that almost like a plywood flavor, right?
Yeah, it depends on how you like doing your oak. The most common way is whether you're using oak sticks or spirals or honeycombs or cubes or chips or balls or whatever they are. You you dump right in the fermenter or the secondary, that kind of thing. The other way to do it is to make an oak extract, and I depending on what I'm doing, I'll do it, and sometimes I won't. But I did make a braggot, that I'm still working on, that was going to be like a really big barrel aged kind of thing. Well, I don't have a barrel, so what I wanted to do was get a nice, real oaky flavor, but I wanted to be able to control it. So I made an extract. You get you can use a clear liquor or a neutral spirit, or you can use a scotch or a whiskey or whatever you feel like doing, and you create this oak extract, and then you add that in. A little bit of a time as you're tasting it, to get that flavor you like. And that's another way to do it as well, that you can try. So that's just to confuse people even more by giving them one of their options.
Well, I think the bottom line is, I like where this guy's going. And I like his, 2-to-1 mix Hungarian to American. I think I would have went the other way around, American to Hungarian, 2-to-1. American oak. Like I said, it depends upon the toast level that you use. As well, and American oak takes a long time really to mature in a mead, I think. Whereas Hungarian oak, it doesn't take that long that I have found. But this is also something, Jeff, that I think once you begin your oaking, regimen, it's a taste as you go kind of thing. Until you get to the point where enough is enough, and then you pull it out.
Yeah, well, and I think this kind of goes back to secondary too. A lot of beginners want defined time periods. I should move to secondary in 3 weeks. I should oak for 5 days. I should add honey after 6 days. That's not necessarily how you do it, and that sucks, because when you're a beginner, that's a really easy thing to do. I'll get good stuff if I just move to primary after 3 weeks, or move primary to secondary in 3 weeks. You're kind of learning to feel stuff out, and unfortunately the way to do that is just to keep tasting it. And you get experience at this, you can kind of guess and shoot from the hip a little bit as to how long you want to leave 3 ounces of oak in a carboy before you start tasting it and start really deciding, oh, do I need to pull it? Do I need to give it a few more days? That kind of comes along to what kind of dramatic differences you're going to taste. If I taste it, every 2 days, every 4 days, every week, you're going to get a level of difference, but you may not taste a lot, depending on a bunch of different factors. So this is one of those times where you really do need to get your hands dirty. You need to taste it a lot and just kind of feel stuff out and learn from experience.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. This one kind of threw me there for a minute when I first saw mead seemingly expanding in secondary. So how to grow your mead, right? Mead is seemingly expanding in secondary high. This is my second time actually posting. The first was after starting my first batch of mead. I racked it into 2 carboys. One, no, that can't be right.
23 liter.
One 23 liter and one 1 gallon. I don't know how much.
23 liter is roughly 5 gallons.
Ah, okay. So it sounds like it was a 6-gallon batch thereabouts.
Right.
So, okay, so 5 gallons and 1 gallon. A couple of days ago after 5 weeks in primary. That seems normal. The mead in the 5-gallon carboy has a ton of CO2 bubbles coming up through it and visibly has more volume than when I racked it into the car. Wow, that's one reason why. Could this be down to continued fermentation creating more CO2 in the mead, taking up more space? There has been no change in temperature. The 1-gallon carboy is doing fine, presumably because I'm able to, okay, so he's getting right to the point here. Presumably because I'm able to shake that one to degas it. The mead consists of 7.5 kilograms of honey to make the amount that I currently have with 1118 fermento, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, bottom line, we're talking about CO2 here, basically. So, yeah, the CO2 probably is making it appear a little more than so. But let's talk about CO2 here for a minute, guys.
Yeah.
He probably should have started degassing very early in this thing. After the fact, you can do it, but you've got to do it very, very carefully. I think we have all experienced the volcano or the the flood, the whatever you want to call it, right? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. So my general process is always to degas, and not to beat a dead horse, but it depends on the mead. Usually, good rule of thumb: degas it at least once a day for the first week. Whether it's a like a hydromel or like a session mead, or whether it's a big beefy mead. In the session meads, I don't go full week. I just kind of wait until about half the sugar is gone, and that could take 2 days. That could take 1 day. You do want to do that in primary so that you're not dealing with a large amount of dissolved CO2. What this sounds like to me, there's one of two things happening here. Either A, he's just got a lot of dissolved CO2 that is now kind of, once he pushed it into the carboy, that's kind of degassing and it's pushing out. I don't know that would increase the volume, so to speak. You might get like what I want to say, like a crust of bubbles, or not crust, but like a head of bubbles, so to speak, as that comes out, depending on the kind of mead you're making. And that could take up more of the carboy, but it doesn't seem like that should do it. And generally speaking, when I degas, I don't see like a decrease in volume. I don't feel like that dissolved CO2 takes up space as much as just, it's part of the mix. The other thing I'm thinking is it's possible. He goes on a little bit later here that he didn't take a lot of readings initially and things like that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I as a new mead maker experienced was that you can kind of get stalled out if you're not keeping careful track of like pH or things like that. And I've had a couple times where a mead that I thought was done or ready for secondary, I put it into secondary and it kicked back up again, just because the act of racking it kicked some of that CO2 out. The CO2 can bind with water molecules to make carbonic acid, and that can hinder yeast production. So once the CO2 was kicked out, the pH rose above whatever level the yeast were able to tolerate, and fermentation started back up again. So that may be what he's seeing too.
Yeah. Ryan, any input here on the...
The only thing I'm thinking of is there have been times where I'll take like one of my primary fermenters that after I've racked out of it, and I got the really dirty, messy primary, and I'll put it in the wash tub and fill it up water and drop in like an oxygen wash or drop in some sort of a cleaning, a cleaning agent. And I'm forgetting now the name of it, but something from like Craftmeisters or something like that. And I noticed that like sometimes I'll go to the brim with the water, or it comes to the brim, I'll drop in some of those tablets, those little like fermenter or carboy cleaning tablets, they call them. Yeah. And I'll fill it up to about the top. And then they start, releasing and
dissolving,
dissolving and bubbling up, and I'll come back and there's like a good inch or more of lower the water volume is.
Yeah.
So whether that is that it's it just got so vigorous and it just pushed it out an inch worth of water, which would be pretty amazing, or if there is something to that of once you take out all of the the oxygen or something, or not the oxygen, but the carbon dioxide or something that might be in there, that it does take up some volume. Would be interesting. It's an interesting question. I haven't experienced it quite that same way, but it just kind of reminded me of that wash. So
Well,
Anyway,
I think I think what you experienced, what you saw with those tablets is actually the act of displacement. Because once those bubbles start forming, that's actually going to displace the water. Okay, the water's got to have some place to go, right? And so it's going to go up if there's nothing to keep it from doing anything else. So it's going to appear like you've got more volume in the container, right? Does that sound logical? Because the bubbles are displacing the water, the liquid. Okay, so the liquid has to go somewhere, all right? So it's going to go up. It's going to make that volume look like there's actually more than there actually really is. Once you pop all the bubbles, or degas, okay, everything settles back down to the regular volume. So I came up with this is a little DIY trick that I put together for degassing. And because the one experience that I did have with the drill and the wine whip resulted in you talk about the Great Flood. Okay. I mean, this stuff went everywhere. All right. That's the first and last time. Okay. I came up with this device that you could actually fit over a glass. You had to do in a glass carboy. And I used a pump and a vacuum pump. I got it from Amazon. It's the same vacuum pump that you use that's commonly found in your food saver machine. And hooked it up, and I used a whole house a water filter canister without the filter. All right, you buy all the correct fittings and everything, and you can get these orange topper things that fit on top of your carboy, and a couple of hose clamps. You plug to one side, the other side you put either some kind of a fitting that you can attach a hose to, and a hose clamp. You want to make a good seal. The orange thing is going to seal around the top of the carboy when you start the suction. So that's a no-brainer. That's going to happen anyway. And so you're sucking the air through this whole house. You put your fittings on this whole house filter container, and you're sucking the air through that. What happens is when the liquid starts traveling up the neck, okay, of your carboy, it'll come through that hose, drop into the filter container, okay, and it will fill up a little. I mean, it's not going to fill up all the way, but it'll fill up. You might get a cup of liquid out of it, but it will allow you to suck the CO2 out, okay, without sucking liquid into the pump. And then you just simply take the contents of the container and just put it back into the carboy. That was one method that I used consistently in degassing after I went into secondary. Here we go back into the secondary thing again. So that was one method. I just wanted to throw that out. Go ahead.
To kind of butt up with what you said there, I've actually done something similar. I just kind of jury-rigged a food saver and a bung that was well sized enough that it would not get actually sucked into the carboy. But do it a little at a time so you don't get the liquid, the kind of foam up the neck.
Yep.
And sucked into your food saver. That's worked fine. The one thing I will caution, I tried this once dumbly to degas while I was in primary. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Because that also takes the oxygen out of the wort, and you kind of need that.
Yeah.
So don't do that. But it's great for secondary or clearing or whatever when you're trying to get those stubborn bubbles out of the meat.
It's like trying to ferment something on the moon, right? Not gonna happen. Oh my God! All right, so moving on here, we'll probably make this one the last one for this episode. Let's talk about some tropical. I don't think we did this one last time. Tropical ingredients. I'm a mead maker on the Big Island of Hawaii. Lucky you, been brewing 2-3 years, so new-ish. Nah, you're not newish. You're an old hat. Been working through all of the Kavikis. Good going there, especially in Hawaii where the temperature just never frickin' changes. And local honeys to make traditionals, and the flavors are turning out great. Feel like everything is a bit thin. I know I think that's supposed to be a lot. I know a lot of people use oak or tannins for mouthfeel. I want to stick to local products. So I was looking at alternatives for oak. Local companies make wood chips, cubes of guava, lychee, and what is it? Kawawa wood. However you pronounce that. Those of you in Hawaii, I'm sure, will correct me in an email or a Facebook post. And let's see, I think this continues. Yeah, I took a course through UC Davis, and one of their other members mentioned using kava during fermentation for mouthfeel as well. This goes on for quite a while. Jeff, he gets down to a point where one word down there that I saw that kind of answered the whole thing here. He's looking for a little mouth. I mean, we talked about the oak thing a little while ago. So he's talking about mouthfeel again here, and he did talk about using some wood, some different oaks and whatnot. But he gets down to this one word, bananas. And I just want to say that bananas offer an incredible degree of mouthfeel without a lot of banana flavor. Okay, especially if you use them up front in primary, not you use them as secondary. Now you're adding banana flavor. But I've used them in primary, and it gives an incredible mouthfeel.
Yeah, I think the trick that Mississippi threw our way back in the day was to throw a half of an overripe banana into primary to get that mouthfeel without a lot of banana flavor. I've done that a couple times, and especially in melomels when there's other fruits going into it, and it seems to work really well with, again, not a lot of banana flavor. The long and short of this post is I'm seeing, are there alternatives to oak for tannins?
Yeah.
And maybe. I mean, you're talking about using a lot of tropical fruit that I don't think have the thick skins of like a blackberry or a blueberry. You can get a lot of tannin out of those fruit, and you may try different tropical fruit skins to accomplish that. I've not actually tried alternatives to oak as far as, different seeds or things like that. I know some people have told me they've gotten nasty flavors leaving like fruit seeds hanging out in trib for too long. Yeah. So that might be a cautionary point there. That might be a little too tannic or a little too other odd flavors. But, different species of oak, if they've been, seasoned correctly, are a viable thing to try and report on. Tell us what you found out. And if it's amazing, we might try it too.
Ryan, using something other than wood to kind of bolster that mouthfeel a little bit. Any tricks up your sleeve that you've done successfully outside of dropping a piece of plywood in the mix?
Well, it depends on what you're comfortable with. We've talked about using things like Opti White or Opti Red as a way to bolster the mouthfeel. We've talked about maltodextrin is another way to do that, or even lactose, depending on what you're going for. There are a lot of different things that you can do to add that mouthfeel and not have that come off thin. The other thing is, and I hear people say this all the time, is they're using the wrong measuring stick. Because somebody who makes 15-18% fruit bombs, that are super sweet, I should say high finishing gravities, but have a lot of acid balance, and really, they're quite pleasant to drink, but, and they'll talk about mouthfeel versus somebody who's making a 5% hydromel.
Right.
And they'll say, "Oh my gosh, the body, it's so thin, it's like drinking water." Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what don't expect an 18% fruit bomb with a final gravity of 1050 to, have the same mouthfeel as a 5% traditional with a final gravity of 001 or something like that, So, and it also depends on what you like. If you enjoy that, if you want that, no problem. I mean, if you're living in Hawaii and, maybe it's relatively warm there and you want something refreshing and light, look, when I'm sitting on the beach, I'd rather drink a Pilsner than an Imperial Stout. And, find out what you like and what works for you. And in that, now, if you're saying that it's too thin for my tastes, then sure, then start playing around and trying to bolster it up. But ask yourself who you're brewing for and what that person likes, and then worry about if the mouthfeel's where you want it.
There you go. Good point. And to finish his deal off here, he says he wants to do a Kona coffee mead. That I would look forward to. I love the nuttiness, and I mean, I love 100. I mean, Kona. You can't get Kona coffee in the United States. You just can't. I mean, the stuff you buy in the store is like 10% Kona coffee, but you can't even taste it. To get it directly from Hawaii, it's kind of on the expensive side, but damn, is it the best coffee in the world? Holy cow. I would love to do a Kona, straight up 100% Kona coffee mead. Even to throw a little bit of macadamia nut in there. Ooh, that sounds really good. But anyway, mahalo to you too, my friend. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Mead House, guys. Wow, what a show. Big thank you to Bart Balis from Brewferm, all the way from, I think he said he was in, I don't know, Jeff, you know more about this place than I do. I think he said he was in Bering,
I think, yes.
Yes,
about an hour from Brussels by car.
Yes, exactly. And so, Bart, thank you so much. Ryan, you want to reiterate that 20% off deal that he's throwing to us?
Yeah, so when you go to brewferm.com, BREWFERM, brewferm.com, when you check out, use the code word Meadhouse, MEADHOUS, no space, just Meadhouse, and 20% off will be reflected in your cart there. They also have free shipping right now, and then that code word, I believe, also works on Amazon. But there's also free shipping. Just kind of a personal point here is it usually helps small businesses if you order directly from them via Amazon. So, I'd say if you have the option, maybe go direct. But if for some reason you've got another good reason to go to Amazon, then the code word should work there as well. And happy brewing. Let us know what you make from there. We're all going to make some batches, and we'll be talking about what we make from those. And we'll be having him back, Bart back to tips and tricks and praise, and maybe it might scare him a little bit. Who knows? So let us know if you try one of those, and if you want to ask Bart any questions as well for the next time he's on.
Absolutely. And again, thank you, Bart, for sharing your time with us in this episode. And hey, don't forget, let us know what you're brewing. Like Ryan said, email us info@themeadhouse.com, or send us a message on that Facebook deal. I think the Twitter thing is still working too, both at the Mead House. So hey, in the meantime, happy mead making. That's it for this episode. Ryan, flip the lights off. Actually, it's freaking daytime, dude. I don't know. What do we do? Get the broom out in the dustpan? Vacuum cleaner, Jeff? Whatever. Hey, we'll be back.
I don't know, but these blinds could use dusting, right?
We'll be back. Yeah, we'll be back next week with episode 182 of the Meat House. Hey, we're gone.